Howdy.
Hello, Andrew.
Namaste,
Howdy.
Franco. Glad to be speaking to you. And boy, I'm also glad to see that my Skype recorder is is recording. I had a problem with that with my last show, and as a result of that, 90 minutes into the show, the air totally went out of my balloon when I realized it wasn't recording. And after I had uploaded Skype, and I told my guest, and he agreed, okay, I'll come on. And I agreed to water down the amount of time I'm going to be talking in that interview, but that's for next week. This is this week, and, well, it's breathing a sigh of relief that it is recording. Won't have to do a take two with you. This is only going to be in an hour because, well, all the really, really important stuff, the questions that I potentially could have asked you, were already asked in that interview that I did with you back in early 2014. So this is going to be a quick sum up of everything that happened since then, if things worked out as you expected, what you expect to see in the present and the future. And of course, it's not really the when that matters, it's the what has to happen, because time is an illusion and timelines are based on what, not when. But, well, I'm digressing. Anyhow, Franco, great to be speaking to you again. I did have a lot of fun, learned a lot of things at that 2016 event in the wilderness areas of Toronto that I went to. Don't know if I'll go to those again. It was kind of maybe a one and done kind of thing. I'm trying to do a lot of variety in my life, and I'll be going to India for the International Yoga Festival in March. That'll be fun. So
Absolutely.
yes. I've digressed long enough. I've babbled long enough. So I'd like to give you the chance to, well, first of all, why don't you tell us what has happened since I first had you on the show about almost 4 years ago it would have been, to talk about, well, one of the highlights of that interview I seem to remember was talking about the transition from third to fourth density. You did differentiate between dimension and density, and you also mentioned something about 2017 being how when our souls are going to vibrate with 5D consciousness. Well, you can elaborate on that right now. So has everything worked out in the 4 years since I last had you on the show? Tell us what happened, if it did or did not work out, and what did actually happen based on your research.
Well, from everything that's been planned out from the beginning and how things were unfolding, there has been some adjustments along the way, due to the fact there were quite a few collective souls that were not quite ready for everything. So there was some extensions. And when I mean extensions, the aggressive changes that wanted to take place or was planned to take place didn't quite all go 100% as original. However, we have still been on a steady path. And, here we are at the end of 2017, now entering into 2018, and we've made a huge progress in preparation-wise. And 2017, I'm not sure if you've paid attention to a lot was going on, but for many people, it was a very powerful, intense year of clearing and bringing up stuff and so forth in preparation for us to be more receptive to a higher consciousness, of course, going into fourth and fifth dimensional consciousness, but also in preparation for our vibrations to actually be able to go into fourth density. Now, this year is, as much as what we are entering in 2018 was originally planned to be done at the beginning of 2017, because of the requests that were taking place, it did delay a little bit, and what we would have had in the beginning of 2017 we're having in the beginning of 2018. So the theme has changed this year, and that's all occurred by the end of December going into January of 2018, where we're at right now. The main theme right now is in further preparation, but in actual fact, it is a shifting within our consciousness, but also a shifting in our vibrational frequency and our cellular structure. So what can I call it? The theme is about change this year. And last year and the years leading up to it, it was restructuring, it was clearing, a lot of clearing, meaning clearing old baggage, old programs, old belief systems, attachments to people, attachments to scenarios, situations, and so forth. And as much as that has been pushed really hard over the years, many people have made progress, but the majority of the people have made very minimal progress, and some none at all. So in that regards, who's ever ready is ready, who's not, who's not. So there has been an energy shift where what we can call, we've split the planet. And when I say planet split, we're talking about two channels of frequencies. So there's a third dimensional consciousness, a fourth dimensional consciousness, and a fifth dimensional consciousness, and a third and fourth density, all on planet Earth at the same time. So what it means is that an individual like yourself, myself, whoever, on the planet here, depending on the focus and what is playing out with them. So if they're heavy into programs and they're going to trigger still fairly heavily, then they will appear themselves operating within the third dimensional consciousness and more into a third dimension or third density physical. But at the same time, as they're meditating and having more elated and higher frequency states of thought, consciousness, and they're not being triggered, then they will kind of shift up to playing in the fourth density and up to fourth and fifth dimensional consciousness. This is what's happening for a lot of people. It's been going up and down, up and down. So I don't know if you've noticed it, but in many people, you may feel quite high, quite connected, quite light. You see that your reality, your interactions with other people are quite different. And then a shift in some trigger or some sort where you get an emotional charge, or you're getting some old program coming back, or some default that you haven't cleared up. And then all of a sudden your reality starts to shift. You feel different, you feel denser, you feel more anxious, you also see that your interactions with people change. Even the people act differently around you, because what you're doing is you're going into that other channel. So the analogy is like switching channels on a radio or a TV. The only beauty of it is that there's two similar programs, but one program is denser, one program is lighter. And so you can go back and forth. Now, this year, in regards to change, there's going to be a lot of upgrades, a lot of shifting going on. And as long as you are flowing with the shift and you are really easy to let go of whatever is remaining and not getting hung up on your old ways and holding on to things that are no longer serving you, the ride is smoother. You're kind of lifted, you're kind of carried into a higher consciousness and a higher creative ability. So that means you can create new realities a lot quicker and kind of live more your desired life, if you want to call it that. And when I say desired life, that's something that needs clarification, because desired life is not an ego desired life. It is a soul desired life. So the soul operates at a higher consciousness. The ego mind usually likes to operate in a lower consciousness unless it gets upgraded with and aligned with the soul, which is a process that takes place. And not many people have been able to achieve that, but there are people that have. So in essence, when the two are aligned, then of course it matches. Now you will realize that the requirement from the soul level in creating its ideal reality may not have so much focus on having stuff, situations where, I need to be attached to people, things, and so forth. It is much lighter. It's creating realities where it can actually experience itself more multidimensionally and also establish new levels of communication. The other thing about 2018 is more of a coming together with people. So people of like-minded, we can call it that, but people of the same vibration, same consciousness, and so forth, will tend to be drawn to each other and kind of support each other. And when I say support, we're not talking about carrying each other. We're talking about support in regards to sharing consciousness amongst each other and so forth. That being the case, then there's going to be much more progress made in a shorter period of time, because the emphasis is a lot of shifting at this point in time, and changing of realities and changing our functionality and so forth. And that will be the theme for 2018, 2019, going into 2020, because that's a whole nother stage of preparation. So from 2014 to 2017, it's been quite a ride for many people, that especially if they've chosen to make huge progress, or they have come here and they want to be facilitators. There's been a lot of preparation being done. So that means they've been challenged quite heavily in letting go of any baggage, any program stories and so forth that they may have maintained. As for the original intent, was to make sure that souls that were not going to participate and be ready to go into fifth dimension consciousness was going to be kind of pushed off the planet, sort of thing. And that was the original theme, and it was heading that direction. However, because of the amount of people that were still in process and were still wanting to experience the remaining part of the 3D part of it, it did get delayed, and then the pushing off did not occur as originally planned. So what it did is it created an opening for third, fourth, and fifth dimensional consciousness and third and fourth density to coexist and have all those realities, or parallel worlds, if you want to call it that, all available, so that you can move around back and forth. So someone can go and try out what it feels to be in fifth and gain some consciousness, and then go back and finish off third with taking some of that consciousness with them, and be able to navigate a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently in the shifting of their reality. So the key here is that the souls wanted to come here and experience this powerful shift, and we are experiencing a powerful shift. This is something that is not, common in any way, even on other planets. All other planets are evolving, but from the point that we're coming from to the point that we are intending to go to, and the amount of sensorial and programmable or programmed aspects of this human experience, it is the most colorful, the most challenging, the most interesting, but also the most intense when, navigating through it. So from a mind perspective, when you're going through a lot of challenges, it can be very overwhelming. It can feel very uncomfortable, but at a soul perspective, it sees the opportunity of progress that it's making. And there is progress, because what's also happening is even our bodies are being restructured to carry more information, to carry more light, to carry more full spectrum of sourceness in its creation. Because originally, when it was planned, these physicalities, it was encoded to be able to do that very easily. However, through manipulation and changes and so forth, and experimentation, a lot of that had turned it off, or turned it off, if you want to call it that. And basically, also the connections and the receptors of the DNA and so forth all was tuned off, or turned off in most cases, and tuned down, to be able to have a much denser experience where you can actually get lost and totally forget who you are. And many of us have totally forgotten who we are. We think we are this body, that we are this mind, and that we are here on this planet now. We do what we need to do. And when I say need to do, what we've been programmed to do, and what we learn and think that we need to do, and then we're done. And we forget that we're actual beings, or what we can look at it as source, as creator, as our own creation and observer of creation, that has come here as one of these realities to play on this planet, which is basically a schoolyard and playground. So over the years, I mean, especially the last 3, 4 years, it has progressively moved in that direction, in that preparation. The fun part right now is that there's that coexistence. But what you'll notice with the coexistence is that you will have the choice of how much interactions you want to have with people that are playing in the 3D, people playing in 4, and people playing in 5th, and also if you want to use how much of the 3rd or 4th density aspects of your physicality. And you can do that all now because all these frequencies are still being supported. Now, even though these waves of energies that are coming through are allowing us to really focus on shifting that and going into the higher density and the higher consciousness, it's not kind of kicking you out like it originally. Now, as you know, the planet, the solar system is moving throughout the galaxy, and the galaxy is moving through the universe, and the positioning and the alignments of planets and so forth have been creating very strong bursts of energies and different codes to come through. So right now, if you are receptive, you've paid attention the last year or so, you can feel the different waves of energy coming in, the ways that you feel different, the ways you see the world different, and that changes fairly quickly. And the one thing we also noticed is that right now, even with all the things that are playing out, everything is expanded in its ways of experiencing things, but everything is accelerated at the same time. So things are moving a lot quicker. We are making the amount of progress that would have taken 1,000 years or even 100 years or 10 years in the past. Now we're doing it within days, weeks, months. It's that quick. And the thing is, we also find that we're not able to stay standing still in our own state because it's not even possible because things are changing so quickly, energetically, and so forth, and we are changing. So anyone that's trying to hold on to the old or the past or anything like that will find more confusion, will find anxiety, will find a lot of stress points coming up because it's difficult to hold on to. So flowing with things is the way to go now. And when we say flow, is be open to what presents and adjust yourself accordingly. It's not becoming the victim. It's not like the surrendering and let that part of me just go wherever it goes. It's basically allowing things to flow in and become part of it and adjust accordingly to navigate through it. Now, a lot of people talk about surrendering, and what we mean about surrendering is the surrendering from the mind perspective, because the mind is very rigid at most of cases, very stubborn too, and wants to hold on to beliefs, programs, and ways and patterns that it has established at one point or another. It's also stubborn in letting go of the past. It's stubborn in letting go of situations that may have occurred and energies that they have played with, and it's still very stubborn in holding on to what it felt that it has earned. So in that case, it becomes difficult when things are changing very quickly. And that's where the surrendering is. At the mind level, you surrender to your higher self so that you will be able to see what is unfolding so that you can participate and also experience an upgraded version of that, all happening at the same time. So this is where we're at with things that have been playing out. For many, many people that have been on the fast track of things, have been, feeling and experiencing a lot within themselves and changes. They've changed careers, changed relationships, changed, ways that they deal with people. They've also, maybe distanced themselves from other people, and other people have distanced themselves from them. They've also noticed that what was important once before is no longer important. Simplification of life and simplification of demands uh, taking place, connecting with nature more, noticing that there is a higher understanding of what's going on, and seeing a bigger picture than just day-to-day grind, which many people have felt that's all that existed. You come here, you sacrifice, you build your little nest egg, and then you retire, and hopefully you have some health to enjoy anything, or that you have to work around the clock to be able to sustain, or what they call survive instead of flourish, and put the focus on building something rather than becoming a grander aspect of yourself, and really getting to know yourself, getting to know who you truly are as the essence of all creation, the essence of all existence that has chosen to play this beautiful experience. And also to understand that you have the freedom to create much more freely than the mind would dictate, or the programming would dictate, because everything seems to be slow. It takes work and struggle and so forth to do anything. When you're in line with fifth dimensional consciousness, fourth density, then your reality is very flexible, and it doesn't apply to the same rules that we've applied. And this is the thing. We also realize that rules don't really exist. And that was a collective rule that was made, and we have agreed to play with it. But as long as we don't choose to play with it, then it no longer needs to be part of our experience. So these are some of the things that I can share that has occurred. You may have some questions and so forth that I can elaborate on, because
Oh,
there's so
absolutely.
much that we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
First and foremost, my number one source of info, Andrew Bartzis. Very glad I was able to get a private session with him for an hour before 2017 came to an end. That was very useful. Some of the things I discussed, I'm not going to discuss with anybody else. It's secret
Mm-hmm.
still. But nonetheless, he did say at the beginning of 2017 that 2017 was going to be the year hope dies. And what he meant by that, in a nutshell, was all the people that were in New Age la la land who think, okay, I don't have to do squat, but just be all love and light and all, and we'll be saved by ETs, we'll have ascension, our bodies will transform, we'll all crystallize, and all that stuff since that people believe was going to happen since 2012 in regards to consciousness shift that was completely, totally way out of the box and way out there compared to anything that's actually happened. Well, all the hope that that was going to happen was going to come to an end, and I could easily relate to that because I did interview Ray Kusalandich, and hopefully I won't have to bring this up again. I had to bring it out throughout the course of 2017 because, well, you'll understand why. He did say in that interview that I did with him, and this was not too long after I interviewed you, as a matter of fact, I believe, that 2017, his ET contacts were telling him that the ETs would show themselves. What's that supposed to mean? And he also was talking about how, well, in a nutshell, Andromeda Council contacting Tolak, all that stuff he said about Earth undergoing a 4D transformation from a physical to a crystalline, shiny, light-based body and of humans and everybody else. That was going to happen in January 2014. It didn't happen. Well, he was wrong. He got a lot of blowback for that. Reiku Zalanich, I'm sure right now he would be getting a lot of blowback because January 1st, 2018 came around. We didn't transform into crystal beings, and the ETs didn't really show themselves to the extent that he would lead one to believe that they would show themselves, like basically saying, "Hi, we're here. The ancient astronaut theorists were right all along. You have no choice but to believe that because we're showing yourselves right now." Well, that didn't happen, and Reiku Zalanich seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. He hasn't said anything on Facebook in God knows how long. So people are probably going to be picking on him for a while, as if they can find him. But anyway, I remember when I was speaking to you at your place after that event in 2016, I did bring up Tolek's thing in January 2014 because you were also talking about a 4D transformation of sorts in January 2014, but it was not as far out there as like Tolek was saying what his ET contacts, I should say, were telling him was going to happen, a full transformation from light-based to crystalline, from carbon-based to crystalline body. And you did get into an explanation about that's one of several different probabilities and sorts, and that was not the one chosen. Well, I'm interested to know, maybe you could, for the listeners that would like to hear what you told me, can you explain that again about why Tolek's thing in 2014 didn't happen, and also maybe could that explain why Ray Kusalanich was, or should I say Ray Kusalanich's contactees, ET contactees, were wrong about 2017 and made him look bad, and now he's unfortunately going to have to pay the brunt of it.
Right. You know, the thing is, this is the challenge that comes up because I mean I have connection with the ETs myself, and you know over the years I've had many discussions with them, and they've you know talked about various plans that were playing out. But you know along the way I was getting a little you know challenging with them because I said you know you guys are making up dates and stuff like that, and I haven't been you know pushing dates anymore because in essence they kept delaying things and changing it, and then of course they don't have the say in what really is going to play out. They look at the probabilities and say, okay, this is what we're aiming for. We're going to push for this. But then along the way, you know, seeing how the collective responds, what, you know, the galaxy leaders, when observing and so forth, take a look and see, okay, at this point in time, you know, how is this going to work? And they do trials on it where they go simulation because if something of that nature takes place, then how is it going to respond? People are going to respond. What wave or repercussion are we going to have? So it looks at all of that, and so there's always adjustments taking place. Now it was very hopeful that you know a lot of the things that you know were planned out was going to happen, but then it wasn't all that easy to make it happen. So it just kept, you know, adjusting accordingly. So in a way, I found it disappointing too. And it's like, okay, then why are you guys making claims like that? And you're, you know, sharing it with other people that are sharing it when, you know, you don't know for sure. You're saying this is what you're planning, that's the direction you're going, but that's only one probability. And if everything aligns to that, then that's great. But it's, you know, what guarantee do we have that it's actually going to go in that direction? So this is why you know a lot of the things had shifted, and you know even by 2017 there was a lot of talk of you know where we're going to be. Now the whole you know being completely crystalline by a period of time, I did not feel that that was even possible, even though that was the intent from the get-go and moving forward. But in essence, because there was so much to do and there was so much interference too at the same time, that it wasn't possible. Plus, people weren't ready, and even the ones, you know, this is the sad part of it. A lot of the people got onto the bandwagon, and like you said, you know, started going into the state of okay, love, light, this and that, and you know, really not working on themselves or actually supporting a collective change in consciousness and so forth, and really getting lost in sort of what you can call la la land. But then a reality check came along and started to notice, well, you know, it doesn't hold it until you know we've actually gone through all the changes that have to occur, and the changes don't happen that easily, especially how integrated we have become. So there has been a lot of laxing in the original plans. So at this point, and even with the ETs, I mean, they intended to be much more present, you know, by 2017. But even before that, they are showing themselves, but they're not showing to the masses. They're not landing and in public and things like that. They are coming onto the planet. Yes, they are interacting with various individuals and so forth, but they're not having this, what you call, you know, we're showing up, here we are, here's the solutions and so forth. That is still up in the air when that's going to happen. As much as, you know, they have had intention, thinking that things were going to align a certain way. And this is the one thing, Andrew, is that I've come to the realization in dealing with them is that they don't always understand the human condition and how challenging it can be when you've been programmed, conditioned, and also manipulated through various substances and so forth to actually shift the functionality of a human when it's so integrated the way it is. For them, and I've seen this before and I've had conversations with them before, it seems very simple for them because they're not in a human body. And then the ones that actually do take on a human body then come to the realization, this is not that easy. So, with that understanding, you have to actually take everything with a grain of salt, because it's like, okay, you're saying this, but what has to be accomplished prior to that even taking place? And when they look at that, they say, well, this, and this, and really, you think that people on a massive scale are going to be able to adopt this with everything else that's going on that quickly? Yes, we are making the progress, but it's not going as quickly as originally planned or intended, without blowing circuits. And when I say that, is not to overload and have people crash. And when I say crash, mind shutting down, having people going totally insane and things like that. That's not something that works. So therefore, the backing off has occurred. So when I asked them, when are you planning to, show? It's to be determined. It's basically, we have to keep seeing where humanity stands at each point and how much exposure we can give and how much preparedness that we can provide before, all of a sudden we expose ourselves to the whole planet. Now, you've seen over the years, there's been a lot in the skies happening. There are more people coming out to speak about, that the aliens do exist, because a lot of people don't believe that, or even want to accept the idea that there are other beings, there are other physicalities in other dimensions and other planets and so forth, that they may have certain technologies that are more advanced than ours in some way. The belief is humans are it. And, that's shifting now. Much more people are accepting that and becoming more, even religion is taking it in, where before even they weren't even accepting the whole idea, that God created just, man, and that was it. And everything else was just decoration, meaning the stars and so forth. And, it was just there for humanity. Meanwhile, there was a lot more behind it. Now, of course, they couldn't hide that anymore. Even though they knew a long time ago, they weren't letting the public know. So now they've had to admit it, because in essence, it's like, okay, yes, there are other beings, there are other creations, there are other worlds and so forth, and we may have visits and so forth. So just kind of to open the door. But people still, there are still people that, deny it and don't want to know any part of it, because at a mind level, it's like, oh, that's too difficult to accept. And, what proof do we have, right? The proof is around us a lot, but in essence, it's still difficult for a majority of people. But as you know, Andrew, a lot more people are understanding that there is other existence, and that they have been interacting with us for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, when you look at it, planets are created through various groups that have the technology to be able to do that, and physicality is the same, and all that inhabits planets, being from plant life to so forth, are coming from other planets. They are, modified and so forth, and placed on planet Earth. So, I mean, you can't say, well, humanity's done that, even though at a soul level, our highest self is part of them. On a human perception of what we have capabilities, which are infinite, but poorly utilized at this point in time. So, if we're going to stay put and say, well, okay, this day, and probably you've seen it, Andrew, a lot of claims that by this day such a thing is going to happen, or this day, there's going to be, Armageddon, whatever. There's a lot of different things that have been said over the years. Again, whenever I've looked at it, everything moves a lot slower than people think. And, there's a lot of wishful thinking. There may be some information shared, a lot of the information too, because channeling at times is not accurate because there are imposters that take on and say, well, it's just kind of give people false hope if you want to talk about it, and or give the idea of the savior mentality, saying, okay, they're going to come here and they're going to save us and so forth. That that has not ever been the plan and never shared that way. But there are people that have channeled that because there are other beings that have claimed that through the channel that this is going to happen. One of the things I've received from them is that, yeah, there's no saving here because really your reality has to be done by your own hands. That means you guys are doing it. We will support you. There's going to be energies and stuff that are coming through and encodements coming through to facilitate, and there's changes in the physicality and so forth, the rewiring and, going from more carbon to crystalline. But are we there now? No, we're not. And is it going to take some time? Absolutely. But it is shifting bit by bit, So, yeah, the arrive at a certain date and it has come and gone. That that was hard to see that to happen. And I know when I was getting information back in 2012, 2013, they laid out a very elaborate plan of how it was going to take place. But then as I saw things going along, and this is why I talked about it a little more, that there was changes. They realized it was not as easy to do without upsetting the balance, and so there was delays. And then there was also the collective souls and so forth saying, "Well, we're not done. We need to finish all of this." So, in essence, how can we, make allowances to still flow with the plan without, pushing everything to the max and just crashing it. So, and also making people unaccountable for their own changes and growth, because that's how it becomes more powerful. So hopefully that could help you there.
Yeah, you did a good job indeed. And looking at what's in store for us, Brad Johnson, who channels Adronis in a video made about a week ago, was talking about how the cabal, yeah, they're still influencing things on this world to a great extent, but their power is going to diminish, and keep diminishing, and it is unavoidable that will happen. Even Andrew Parsons backed that up by saying that the system since late 2017 has been, excuse me, since late 2011, like around when Carl Johan Kalimann's end date of the Mayan counter interpretation started, the system is cannibalizing itself and has to keep cannibalizing itself to keep sustaining itself, so it's unavoidable that it will eventually be gone. And Brad Johnson, Adronis, did give the date, dare I say, date of around 2024, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because, well, the whole Pluto and Capricorn thing, the destruction of everything that is not in humanity's best interest. Also, we have that solar eclipse that's going to happen on April 8th, 2024, the day after I'll be turning 38, and the day my youngest brother will be turning 30, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to be in Carbondale, Illinois to see that. That's the crisscross point of the eclipse that just happened last August, and the one that is going to happen in 2024 is going to crisscross in Carbondale, Illinois. That's where people will see it twice. I guess it's a no-brainer. That's where you want to be if you want to see that one. And that is going to coincide near the end of the Pluto Capricorn cycle. And I remember on one of his reports, Alex Jones of InfoWars, one of his crew folks, was talking about how the solar eclipse we had in August, the way it crossed the continental United States, something, not all the details I'm sure and specific about, but the last time a crossing of that nature in a certain way that it did happen, the last time it happened prior to that was at the beginning of the American Revolution. So one would have to think, and there's a lot of people talking about this that are saying we're in store for another American Revolution. I mean, I I know NFL is all bread and circus, but I am a football fan by heart, and for some reason, I'm having visions of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Well, if sports is all scripted, then that kind of makes sense. If you want to talk about Eagles, because symbolic of American Revolution, winning the Super Bowl, it would certainly go in sync with their with starting the next American Revolution. But I digress. Anyhow, the point is, the stars seem to be aligning, the events seem to be aligning, and can we give dates? Well, apparently yes, because if you look at the way the planets and the stars align and the time periods that they're supposed to align in that way, may it be fair to say that we'll not have to worry about no stinking Illuminati no more by 2024? Any comments?
Yes, and the possibility is even before that at this point. But yes, I mean, the thing is, we have much more progress that's been taking place right now. And, you know, even though the last few years have moved slowly, what it seemed like slowly, but it's also moved very quickly, it's created a strong foundation. But now, you know, the 2018 on to 2024, I mean, there's two other phases after this one. So this one's going to be from 2018 to 2020, then 20 to 22, and 22 to 24. So any along that along there, you can have a lot of the control structures and so forth all disappear. I mean, already it's starting to get weaker and weaker. Even some of the attempts are being dwarfed by many, many ways, and there are more people coming out and speaking about it. So the writing's on the wall sort of thing. It's exactly when it all occurs, but I don't see it happening in just one flip of a switch. I see it as incremental, and the increments are moving larger and faster through the process, especially now that we're going into the next phase. You'll notice that more of the control structures and so forth may rebel a little bit and try to tighten things up. But, the thing is, the realization that people will have is that, the control structures and so forth rely on us or people to do its work. And as long as we're receptive, and as long as we're fearful, and as long as we think that they have power over us or that they are the dictators, then we'll still continue playing that, even though that's going to be harder and harder to do so. But with the further realization that's going on, people start to refuse to participate, and their power is gone completely. And this is where it happens. It's the general public, if you want to call it that, that are the ones that are, turning off the power that they have by saying, we're not going to participate. First of all, second of all, you need our participation for us to do, and we're not going to buy into the fear. We're not going to buy into your rules and structures and so forth. And that's happening more and more. And that's why more and more people are speaking up, more and more, people are coming in and saying, this is what's going on and this is what's taking place. And people are realizing, of course, sometimes people get upset first, but then they realize, okay, how do we do this? How do we handle that? But I do agree with you that, the stage is set very strongly that by 2024, that the existence of dictatorship and having a group of elites controlling and navigating the planet and dictating how people should function and so forth, I can't see that holding up that long. So anytime from now to then, I'm not saying that's going to happen this year by any means, or even the next year, but there's a higher probability between 2024 that a lot of that will dissolve. The whole need of wanting to play that game and giving authority in that way will dissipate. I just don't see how that, and I know that from even the inputs I've received from my other contacts and so forth, they tend to agree with you, Andrew, that, by that time it's going to be quite different. Our reality, even by 2020, by 2030, 32, I mean, we will definitely be, in a complete different reality and world. One that would have taken, tens of thousands of years to accomplish before will happen in a short period of time. So those intentions are there. The stage is being set. The energies are being set. The fact that how we are realigning with other planets and some of the things that you have mentioned too will make it very difficult for people to be able to play the game that we're playing now or have been playing up to this point in time. So the change will happen no matter what. And we will participate. And if there's certain people that do not want to participate, they have always the freedom to leave at any time. And that becomes easier and easier to do.
Yes, indeed. And but looking past the time period of 2024, once we get rid of the control system and try to move into a golden age, I mean, is it really going to be possible to do that? Because Webbot creator Cliff High, he actually made a rather bold prediction of sorts, and I believe even Bashar, E.T. contactee Bashar, who, well, no, Daryl Anko's the contactee, he channels Bashar, was talking about this, that in a couple of decades, like late 2040s, early 2050s maybe, next time Halley's Comet is supposed to show or something like that, the Earth is actually going to be in an ice age, and the evidence for that, they assert, among other things, is that first of all, the way the solar system is shaped, the flat Earth is bullshit, and even the heliocentric thing that Copernicus talked about is bullshit. It's actually more shaped like a spiraling traffic cone with the sun like at the top of the traffic cone and the planets orbiting like an imaginary pole that you can envision going from the sun at the top of the traffic cone down to the ground in the middle of the traffic cone, and the planets are orbiting that rod as the sun travels through space at tremendous velocity, and the Earth is going to be on the same part of that spiraling traffic cone as the planets Jupiter and Saturn. And Cliff High asserted that the gravity of Jupiter and Saturn being on the same part of the cone, this spiraling cone shape, as the Earth is going to cause the Earth to be pulled farther away from the sun, which is going to pull the Earth into an ice age. Now, I got a couple problems with this. First of all, I've heard from some other sources that, well, the idea that the stars are powered by nuclear fusion is bullcrap. That's not what stars are actually made of, and the distance a planet is from a star has nothing to do with whether or not the planet can support life. All that Goldilocks zone stuff is mainstream science lies. It has nothing to do with whether or not a planet can support life. And also, it's been said by people in the ET contactee community that many of the planets that their ET contacts come from that are of a 4D or 5D or 6D nature, their consciousness seems to turn the world that they live on, regardless of where it's located in space, into a paradise. Like on some planets, it's like constant, like it doesn't get any hotter than 75 degrees in the day, and it doesn't get any colder than 60 degrees at night or something on those planets, regardless of where you are, because the consciousness is such to keep it in perpetual balance. Like there are no seasons. It's like subtropical year round and such. And I'm thinking if we're going to go into a golden age of consciousness, in a couple decades, then we don't have to worry about an ice age happening, even if Jupiter and Saturn do pull us farther away from the sun, because that's not the nature of the way the world works in regards to consciousness causing weather patterns and climate. Do you have any comments on this?
No, I agree with you with that because that's exactly how it works. So it really, the positioning of the planet and so forth, it may, be influenced by certain energy, but it's really the consciousness because, I mean, we're looking at a holographic expression of planet Earth. Planet Earth is just an energy field. And even originally before, when we're looking back, I mean, I know some people will find this difficult. And, when you look back, when the planet was retuned again, we were in that kind of what you call paradise, where the temperatures wouldn't fluctuate, where we didn't, have to deal with the extremes of cold and warmth, and or even be in a situation where nature itself, like the animal kingdom, eating one another, and humanity requiring to use substance of eating plant food or eating animals or anything of that nature. None of that existed because the consciousness at that time was different. However, as part of the experiment and with the changes, then the consciousness did shift, and all of a sudden a food chain was derived, and then of course there was a reliance of one item feeds the next and so forth, and everything changed, and then we started having climate shift and so forth. But it had nothing to do with the positioning of the planet, or that the moon was there or wasn't there before, because it wasn't there before, and then it was there. So basically, yes, it doesn't matter where it is. The collective of the planet and its consciousness can create, that paradise and maintain a paradise and have everything supportive. Because one of the intent with the shift in consciousness is to go back to that paradise, but even grander than before, so that we don't even have to eat, where we don't have to, we get our energy just from being exposed to sunlight and so forth. And even the animals will go back to not eating one another or anything of that nature, because the consciousness will get to that point where we don't have to be in survival, we don't have to be in fight or flight or anything of that nature. And so, yes, I agree with you. And that's what I've seen, because even it travels and, projecting onto other planets, you look at these planets and you go, they're nowhere close to some, what you call a solar or a sun of some sort, which is radiating heat. And it's true. It's not plasma burning and creating heat or anything like that, because you will see, the planet itself is hollow, so the sun, I mean, and you have ships from other beings going in and out all the time. They're not burning up or anything of that nature. It's because their consciousness, their vibration is different, so it does not translate light that's coming from the sun, which is again just a projection, into heat, and also cause a devouring of their ships or anything of that nature. They're not exposed to that. They see the light, but they can go right through it, and they're not affected by it. Where our consciousness and how we're playing the game, the sun is very effective to us. So when the sun is shining, it gets warm. When it's not, or when it's distant, it gets cold. And this is how we have the seasons. But that is only because it's a temporary design that we have been utilizing. Once we go into that higher consciousness and we decide on a collective scale to play differently, we will not, the intent is not go into an ice age, because what happens in an ice age? It will change the planet, the way it functions. It changes the way humanity will function. It will push people more into survival, and that's not where we're shifting ourselves into. It's not about survival. It's about thriving. It's about flourishing, but also, going into that oneness where we see ourselves as one, and participate with one another. That's kind of the world we will create with that new level of consciousness. This whole idea of, it may be heading in that direction temporarily while the consciousness is going through a shift, but once the shift in consciousness, paradise is our creation.
Yeah, so unfortunately, that kind of flies in the face of what my previous guest, Frank Joseph Hoff, was asserting, that Atlantis has to be in, it had to have been in Indonesia because the rest of the planet would have been in an ice age. Well, no, if the people of Atlantis had high consciousness, they could have kept the Earth in a like subtropical climate throughout, then that wouldn't be an issue. But well, that's a talk for another talk for another time. I got one thing I want to talk about before maybe we call it a night. The whole idea of going with the flow of life, and how to properly use your intuition to sense things. I have heard, yeah, this is going to be very prominent for a lot of people in 2018. The whole idea of recognizing intuition, and they always say it's better to go with the gut then and also better to go with the heart. If you have to choose between the gut and the heart, well, yeah, go with the heart instead of the gut, because the gut's a solar plexus and the heart is definitely better there. But some people are kind of confused about how to flow with life. I mean, like, how do I explain this? I myself, when trying to look for cues in regards to when I'm thinking a certain thing is appropriate or something, I look for cues around me. Like if my phone makes like a ringing or a beeping noise at a time I have an epiphany thought or something, or anything like that, or even a creaking sound in the house. Maybe that's a guardian angel trying to make its presence through the sound out there. I don't know. But in regards to people trying to like notice the high level consciousness environment around them and try to be one with it, do you have any advice for that, for these people, to how they can do that instead of and not go crazy about things that are actually just like everyday occurrence? Well, and for that matter, I guess another way of rephrasing the question, how do you know whether some of these things that I'm talking about, like synchronicities that happen through everyday things like phones ringing and like parts of your house creaking and such, they're not just they're just things that happen naturally and are not like your angels and guides trying to like say, well, these things are happening at these times because you're thinking these things at these times and all that. How are we supposed to know if we're flowing the right way and using our intuition to recognize things for what they truly are? If that's the best way I can phrase this question.
Yeah, the thing with that is it's more of a feeling aspect. Like, okay, so say you're having some thoughts, or you're trying to decide on something, and then you have, all of a sudden you see 1111 or 111 or whatever, or 333 or whatever. Those are kind of cues and confirmation to kind of just for you to say, okay, I'm on the right track, or something of that nature, or at least to keep you or like you said, the phone or some other noise or something like that. If that feels like a message to you, then that's a confirmation that you're doing. But realistically, I mean, the thing is, the flowing about life is not to analyze and take things personally the way we have done it before. See, the way it works, our superconscious, which is basically our higher self slash soul, is in the driver's seat most of the time. And the way it works, we will only have experiences that will benefit us at all times. Now, the question comes in is, why do we have stuff that sometimes is not very pleasant and so forth? Those are there just to allow for you to be triggered or something like that, to show you there's a program, a belief system, or something that is still active that affects you from going with the flow, or affects you from living life fluidly. So in essence, if you have to decide something, you can, put a piece of paper and put on one side the pros, the other side the cons, and look at it and weigh it and so forth. But, that's using logic. But logic relies on things staying status quo, first of all. Logic requires to have things work the way they've always worked. But the thing is, if you have to make a decision, or you have something that you're contemplating to take a direction in, you go into yourself, connect with yourself, and say, okay, do I feel resonant with this? Does this feel good? Forget about what my mind says, because the mind will either create fears about something, or will say, oh, okay, this will be a great opportunity and so forth, but it is not going to play out as well, because in essence it wasn't really the experience you needed to have. So in essence, you connect with yourself. Okay, does this resonate? Does this feel to me? Logically it doesn't make sense, or logically it makes sense, but regardless of that, how does this feel? Does this resonate with me? Does it feel like something I need to do? The other thing that's important, when you get those cues, when you feel, okay, this resonates, you can start taking the steps, and it's good that you do. And when you start taking the steps, you always keep time to time checking in to see if it needs to be redirected, adjusted, or anything of that nature. The other thing you'll notice is that at times we are led to go down a certain path. And when so we feel resonant, we start taking steps and so forth, and then it changes. Does that mean that you made an error or you got bum information? No. It means that those were the steps you needed to take, and that was it. Now it's time to redirect it or change. Only for the fact that you only needed to gain the experiences to get that far before it redirected and create a new set of reality, a new path for you to go in. So this is why people get lost in this, and this is where difficult, where you tune in and says, okay, you need to do this, okay, or you won't get so much you need to do this. This is kind of cute, this is beneficial. So you start going down that path, and then things change. Well, why did it change? Well, because a lot of alignments have shifted, but you only had to go this far. So even in a relationship, you're saying, okay, well, I feel very conducive to connect with this person. And you start a relationship, or you're connecting with this person, but along the way, you're learning from the experience. They may be triggering you. They may be bringing you higher consciousness because of the communication. They might bring you certain experiences. But then all of a sudden it feels like, nah, I don't want to be part of this any longer. And that's fine. And that's how the flow is required, because it wasn't planned to be long term. Even though you may have gotten the idea that it may be a potentiality, but remember, you're shifting, they're shifting, everything around you is shifting. So what is beneficial right now may change. The other thing too, a lot of times people need to make a decision. So, well, should I go on this trip and so forth? And I have fear because there's a potential. I heard there's a potential that there's an unrest in this area. There could be an earthquake or something of that nature. Keep one in mind. You tune into yourself. Does this resonate? Do I need to go this way? Does it benefit? Regardless if you go or you don't go, you're still going to have whatever experience you're going to have. You're not going to have anything that's not going to serve you one way or another. Now, if you're going to be stubborn and you want to, hang on to your old beliefs and say, well, no, I need to do this, this, and this before I do that, then you may be challenged that way because of the higher aspect of you wants you to break out of that pattern so that you will trust more your intuitiveness, more your heart, like you said, the gut feel is what a collective path would be. You'd be connecting to others with other experiences. So when you get a gut feel, you're connecting to another person or a group of people and so forth and their experiences. So that can help at certain times. But connecting with your heart is you're connecting with your higher self, your soul, and that is the true navigator, and that's the one that's going to kind of look at the big picture and kind of direct you in which way would be best and what would be the key experience for you at that time. So using that, so the going back to the whole idea, the fluidity aspect of it is to kind of be open to new possibilities, new ways of looking at things, and just kind of feel your way along. And there's two types of feeling to look at. There's the emotional feeling, and then there's the intuitive feeling. The intuitive feeling is a feeling that's very genuine, very clear, and it's not emotionally charged. You will feel, okay, yes, I feel like that. I feel like doing this. This is some experience that I want to participate. Okay, I want to go out tonight and I want to connect with these people. That's it. That feels how it feels for you. The other feeling is from an emotional component. That feeling is usually feeling excited or feeling fearful. So you're either fearful or the other. And that, if you have a feeling of ill will or bad feeling or something of that nature, that's usually a trigger of some sort. Now, that can be from a gut feeling sometimes because of some negative experiences that is being feed back, or your mind's getting involved, your ego mind's getting involved, and it's just triggering, your emotions. So you need to put that aside. You say, okay, I'm not going to give power to the fear. Now you connect again to the heart and say, is this for my highest good right now and for the highest good of anyone and everyone that I need to connect with or will connect with going down this path? And you will feel guided in which way or another. Now, we all have guides. We all have angelic realms that participate with us at times. So there are many cases will help you with different signs. Usually those signs are there when we don't trust our higher self and that feeling that's coming from inside, the intuitive part. So then they step in and kind of do something, align numbers or, have a door creak or something, at a particular time saying, yes, go with that feeling, go with that direction. It's because it kind of helps the mind say, all right, there's a confirmation here. A lot of times the minds, if they're really stubborn, they do that, but then they want 10 other qualifications or whatever you want to call it. Can't think of the word right now, but other signs that this is the right direction to go. There is no right or wrong, good or bad. There are different choices that have different outcomes, and the outcomes either are helping us clear programs or advancing us in one way or another. If we stay in tune, we don't have to go through the bumps as much. See, the thing is, a lot of times if we are going with just the analytical part of it or, the mind's little story, then we have a tendency to have bumps and bruises come along because in essence it takes us down the path And then our higher aspect says, no, 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 we can't stay on this path. We really want to shift from this. So here, we're going to let, you have an experience that's going to kind of break down those ideas that that's the way to go. For example, if you want to connect with somebody and say, well, I've had bad experiences with other people of the similar nature, so I'm going to be very careful, and I'm going to look at all the cues and make sure that, if they have any signs that matches any other experience I've had in past relationships, I will run away from it, or push away from it, or not participate. See, that again is just going through programs and experiences and patterns based on the past experiences. But if you use your intuitiveness, you connect with yourself, you connect. Okay, is it for my highest good to connect with this person at this point in time? At this point in time is key, because that can change at any time. So don't think, okay, here's the green light. This is going to be, a match for heaven, or made in heaven for the next 500 years or 100 years that you're on the planet, or 60 years you're on the planet, or anything like that. None of that, matches anymore, especially things are changing so quickly. And this is why relationships come and go. This is why things are shifting so quickly now. It's not long term anymore as it used to be. So just using that as your guidance system. But if you have fear, quieten that part of it first, and let the fear subside. Meditation helps too, and then connect with your higher self, connect with your heart, and say, okay, does this resonate for me to go down this path? And if you're going down the path, just continue to use your heart to navigate. The mind may at time to time throw ideas and say, well, look, here's this can happen to you, and that can happen to you, or if this is not logical. You can't sustain this. You can't support this. Or, look at what happened to you last time, or anything of that nature. You have to have the tendency to disregard that and say, okay, thank you for sharing, but I'm not participating here, and I'm just going to use my own internal navigation at this point. And just have that communication with your ego mind and say, listen, okay, you had your run before. I'm just really going to follow my gut or follow my heart this time.
That is very, very good advice, Franco. Definitely something I will utilize as I try to utilize my intuition more and more often in 2018 for the love-based better. So with that being said, I'm very glad you were able to come on the show. I'll let you finish it off now by giving out your contact info, anything else that you'd like to get out as well. And well, best of luck to you. You're worthy of coming on a second time, even though I did say back in the day that I may not have you on again because I make a mission out of getting a different guest on every single week till the day I die. Well, that was kind of something I only had on when I was on Blog Talk Radio. I've kind of moved past that now that I've gotten off Blog Talk. So you were definitely worthy of coming on, not just because of the things you said, but also because of the things that you've done for the benefit of humanity. It's definitely been worthwhile, and well, you got the floor to don't take too long, because people has the attention spans, and it has come to my attention that having 2-hour shows is costing me potential listeners. So I start doing it shorter. So your contact info, anything you like, go ahead.
Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to say before we do the contact was just the fact that our intuition, our connection to our heart is heightening. So in essence, it's going to become easier and easier and harder to ignore. So that's a bonus. Anyways, yes. As for myself, also in 2018, I mean, I have great intentions to have much more material out there to support tools and so forth to have people navigate much easier. I would recommend that people go to my website, which is www. You don't even have to actually do www if you don't want to. Just francodenicola.com, all one word there, and just register to get notification. We're going to have a lot of videos coming up. We're going to do various Q&As. We're going to be sharing a lot of tools. There's new tools and products being made available. So it's going to be a busy year for 2018. To stay posted, you can connect on Facebook. You can connect also on my website. I have a YouTube channel that I've established. I'm going to be putting on more videos on there. And again, it's just to help us all work together and to kind of move forward and utilize this time to really accelerate. And I mean, our reality enhancement is in our hands right now, and that's what better way to do it and then do it together. Because as a group, as a team, we're a lot more powerful because it's bringing other aspects of ourselves into the mix rather than feeling ourselves isolated. So, and that, with that concluding, I really thank you, Andrew, for having me back on. It's always a blast to communicate with you. Hopefully, we'll connect again sometime in maybe on the radio or in person. I mean, that would be great to see you again at some point, but we'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of things are changing always, so who knows? Our path may cross in places that we can't imagine at the moment.
Well, everything happens for a reason. No question about that.
Absolutely.
And if we do cross paths, it'll happen for a reason. Franco, pleasure having you on. Good luck on everything you do. Good luck on the rest of your trek without infinite consciousness. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.